Keir Starmer really likes to stutter around questions and not answer them. To be honest, he's always been like that, with the added bunch of lies. Keir has been in a lot of interviews of the last 24 hours, and honestly, most of them have been scripted messes. However, in one interview, the interviewer actually calls him out and actually tries to get him to answer a simple question. As always, he stutters around it and fails to answer, but the interviewer keeps on jabbing. Let's take a look at the clip, whilst also going over all of the latest news from up and down the country. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and join our fast-growing community. So as promised, check the clip.
Would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to pensioners like Chrissy?
Well, I am really concerned that we've been put in this position. When you inherit an economy with £22 billion missing, it is a really difficult set of choices. But what I don't want to do is to allow the economy to run out of control.
I asked you, would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to voters who voted for you, like Chrissy, pensioners who are about to lose hundreds this winter because of your choices?
What I'd say to Chrissy is this. I absolutely promised that we would stabilise the economy to make sure we never had the economy getting out of control again. We then discovered £22 billion missing.
Okay, so you've mentioned the £22 billion a couple of times. Just because I've asked you a couple of times and you have just skirted round it, would you like to say sorry?
The people who should be saying sorry are the last government who left a hole of £22 billion. And they should be sorry for that. They should apologise for that.
So you're not going to apologise?
I've come in to fix the mess, fix the problems, and that's tough, really tough decision. And if we don't stabilise the economy, we can't keep to the triple lock. And the triple lock is really important for every pensioner because that is the increase.
In other news, almost 40 people were let out of prison by mistake under Labour's controversial early release scheme, the Ministry of Justice has admitted. One MOJ source said some 37 criminals were released erroneously on September 10th because their offences had been recorded incorrectly under now repealed legislation. As a result, the cases were not flagged for exemptions meant to stop criminals guilty of certain offences from being released. 5 prisoners are still on the loose, but most have been brought back into custody, the source said. A Ministry of Justice spokesman said, "Public safety is our first priority. That is why we took decisive action to fix the broken prison system we inherited and keep the most dangerous offenders locked up. This included blocking the early release of domestic abuse offences, such as stalking and controlling behaviour. We are working with the police to urgently return a very small number of offenders who were charged incorrectly and sentenced under repealed legislation to custody. The convictions remain valid with offenders monitored since their release and will soon be back behind bars." Some 1,700 criminals had been handed their freedom early by Labour in a controversial move meant to ease up a nationwide overcrowding crisis, stemming back years. The MOJ had said the crisis had effectively pushed British prisons to the point of collapse, and new Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood's solution was to temporarily slash the amount of time inmates must spend of their sentences in jail by a fifth. And despite today's news of the blunder, a similar number are set to be released next month. Back in August, when the government announced the scheme would be implemented, the PM's hand-picked Prisons and Probation Minister, Lord Timpson, called the move difficult but necessary. He said, "We inherited a justice system in crisis and exposed to shocks. As a result, we have been forced into making difficult but necessary decisions to keep it operating. However, thanks to the hard work of our dedicated staff and partners, we have brought forward additional prison places and now introduced Operation Early Dawn to manage the pressure felt in some parts of the country." Foreign Secretary David Lamy ripped into Russia very bizarrely at the UN today in an extraordinary tirade referencing slavery, Putin's imperialism, and his African heritage. Addressing delegates at the United Nations headquarters in New York City, Lamy directly took aim at Russia's envoy to the organization, Vasily Nebenzia, as he called out imperialism. Lamy said, "I say to the Russian representative on his phone as I speak, that I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved." The Foreign Secretary referenced how his ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved before taking a veiled swipe at Britain's colonial past. He continued, "Imperialism. I know it when I see it, and I will call it out for what it is." This week, when I'm here talking to other partners around the world about our shared futures and the future of the UN, Russia is trying to return us to a world of the past, a world of imperialism, a world of redrawing borders by force, a world without the UN Charter. We cannot allow this to happen. Once again talking up Britain's steadfast support for Ukraine, Lamy has personally pushed to outfit Volodymyr Zelensky's forces with UK-made Storm Shadow missiles, the Foreign Secretary added to his anti-Russian remarks. "Ukraine's fight matters to all of us," he said before continuing. "The UK will remain Ukraine's staunchest supporter." Lamy's address has won praise and raised eyebrows alike. The Foreign Secretary later referred to Putin's invasion of Ukraine as the Premier's personal project to expand his mafia state into a mafia empire, which won plaudits from former Guardian Russia correspondent Luke Harding, who labelled his speech blistering. But the Russians at the session weren't so convinced. Dmitry Polyansky, the first deputy permanent representative of Russia to the UN, said, "It was sickening to hear from David Lamy in the UN Security Council today." Polyansky referenced a common Russian line on the phrase Slava Ukraini, adding, "Not only dubious lectures on how his ancestors defeated imperialism, but also articulating slogans of Ukrainian nationalists and Nazi collaborators." But the bickering at the UN came ahead of a sobering warning from Vladimir Putin himself. Opening a meeting of Russia's Security Council, the 71-year-old president warned that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it was struck with conventional missiles, and that Moscow would consider any assault on it, supported by nuclear power, to be a joint attack. "The conditions for Russia's transition to the use of nuclear weapons are also clearly fixed," Putin said, adding that Moscow would consider such a move if it detected the start of a massive launch of missiles, aircraft or drones against it. Russia reserved the right to also use nuclear weapons if it or its ally Belarus were the subject of aggression, including by conventional weapons, Putin added. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.